What's going on, everyone? I am back with another video, and I just got home early from work today because it freaking I think we probably had by far the biggest snowfall of this like winter season for around where I live. So like the yard was like so piled up, like there was so much snow. So I got home early and I figured I may as well make the video. Guys, look at my driveway. I don't know how. Okay, so at my work, like there's like a steep hill to get into the parking lot, and yo, I literally just freaking sent it and I somehow made it. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, so I'm probably gonna have to shovel this because I can't even get my car in unless I want to break something or destroy or even get stuck. I'll have to shovel it. So why don't we get a time lapse of it? Alright guys, we just got inside. I was gonna record the video in my car, but honestly, I'm so cold. I'm kind of like hyperventilating right now because there's so much snow on me. But anyways, in this video, I'm gonna be talking about a full Mazdaspeed 3 full maintenance guide. Before we go on, I want to talk about something that I just made yesterday. It was a little project. I got this idea from a YouTuber that I watch. It's basically called like a vision board. So things that I want that are kind of hard out of reach. So, you know, 1K subscribers, 2K, 5K, 10K. 100K views, getting monetized, YouTube merch, Focus RS, freaking dog. It really helps keep me motivated, and I really like it, and I kind of just look at it every day because I really admire it. And honestly, I encourage other people to do this. Like, just get like a bulletin board, print out a bunch of pictures, put it on, and then whenever you get it, you can just like cross it out. It keeps you motivated every day. I don't know. Alright guys, the first thing that I'm going to be talking about is oil changes. So for oil changes, you want to do it, I mean, it depends on your driving. So I say around every 5 to 7,000 kilometers, not miles. So I'll put up what that is in miles, but you want to do it. So depending if you do mostly city, you want to do it a little earlier, but if you do mostly highway, then you can do it a little later, not as frequently. So it all depends on like the style of driving and what kind of driving you do. So for someone like me, so where my miles are mostly highway, I usually do them around every like 6 to 7,000. But like I said, if I was doing mostly city, I probably do it every like 5,000 kilometers. And the oil that I recommend to always run is always a 5W40. It's just better overall for the engine. So either like Motul 8100, Rotella T6 is good. And then for the oil filter, usually I would recommend just the OEM filter, so from any Mazda dealership, and usually it takes around 5.4 liters, I think, for like a full like oil change. So you want a 5-liter bottle, and then like an extra 1 liter or an extra 5-liter, but you just want to make sure after you pour the full 5-liter that you want to be very particular with the second one, so you get exactly like around like 500 milliliters. All right guys, next thing that I'm going to be talking about is transmission fluid changes. So I would recommend when you get to around like 150,000 kilometers, so again, I'll put that in what it is in miles, but I would say you want to do a full transmission fluid flush around that time, and you're gonna want to need to get 3 quarts of it. So 3 bottles, 1 quart each, so you'll need 3 quarts. And usually what I run is, it's called like the Redline MTL 75W90. I forget like the exact name. I'll put like the right name if I was wrong, but you want to do 3 quarts of that with a full transmission fluid flush. It just keeps your transmission running a lot better, so that way you don't like, you know, deteriorate any like synchros, like you're not like grinding after a certain period of time. You want to make sure that your transmission has fresh fluid. It's kind of like the same thing just as like the engine, where like, you know, you always want it to have like fresh oil. Obviously you don't have to do a transmission fluid flush like as much as an oil change, but you do want to do it at some point, especially when your car starts to get older. Alright guys, the next thing that I'm going to be talking about is doing a coolant flush. So I would probably do this around the same time, maybe like 150, 160K. You want to do a full flush, and the coolant that you want to get, you can get it from any local Mazda dealership. It's called like FL22, and you're going to need 2 full jugs of it. So I'll throw up a picture of what they are. You're going to need 2 of them. I mean, you could probably get away with 1, but just for safety, like in my experience when I did mine, like I definitely like realized that it was a smart idea to get 2 just to be safe, because it does burn off a lot of coolant when you do it. Also, a little thing I noticed, so if you have an access port and you monitor like the coolant temps religiously, you'll notice that after you do your coolant flush, you may notice that the coolant temps are extremely high, even at like regular temperatures. So don't worry about that. It's just normal. All you literally have to do is just open up the cap, and you essentially have to let the car burp because there's so much air in it. So if that happens to you guys, then don't worry, don't be alarmed. It happened to me. I just literally like opened the cap, let it essentially like burp. Alright guys, next thing that I'm going to be talking about is spark plugs. So for spark plugs, I would recommend doing it I would say around every 30K miles. So this is just for miles. I'll put up what kilometers it is for my Canadians. I recommend that. So for what spark plugs you should get, so if your car is essentially like bone stock, then you could get like the stock heat range, but I would 100% recommend, if you're running any mods like intake, downpipe, intercooler, next time you do your spark plugs, you definitely want to upgrade to 1-step colder plugs. And a really good one, I have a video on it that you guys should check out, where I did like the NGK Iridiums. I think it's the number is 6510, like the product number. Definitely do that. It'll make your car run a lot better. And especially if you're adding more power, you definitely want the 1-step colder plug. So that's what I recommend for spark plugs. Next I'm going to be talking about is brake fluids. So you want to do this every 1 to 2 years, probably every 2 years, but just to be safe, depending on what you're doing with the car, I would definitely recommend, I think it's called the Motul.4. I'll throw a picture of exactly what it is right there. You can probably get away with just 1 of those bottles, but maybe 2 just to be safe. Like when I did mine, like I had just enough, so you want to make sure that you have proper brake fluid. It really helps whether you're just like tracking your car, driving your car hard. You really want good brake fluid. So this next one is going to apply, I mean, it should technically apply for all speeds, but I'm going to really recommend it for like the older speeds. So like for the first gens and maybe like the early 2010 Gen 2s, is definitely around like 160, 150K kilometers. You definitely want to check out your VVT. So the problem with these cars, especially with the older ones, I mean, they kind of fixed it in like the newer speeds, but the VVTs are very known to like get loose. But yeah, like I was saying, if you basically have like a 2012, 2013, even like 2011, I'm not sure, but you should be good for your VVT, but it's always good to check. On top of that, since your valve cover is already off, you may want to also do like a compression test just to make sure that the compression is pretty much even around the board, right around like, I'd say like the good number is like 180, just to make sure that there's compression in each cylinder. It's just something to take into consideration, something you should check out, and even I should do it myself, so I should probably take my own advice, but definitely that. Next is one thing that I know a lot of people don't even like remember or think of when it comes to car maintenance for any car in general, is your cabin air filter. Guys, when I checked my cabin air filter for the first time, it was disgusting. There was like leaves, there was dirt on it, and that's what like circulates like the air from your AC and your heater. So if you want to be breathing in dirty air, then I mean, by all means, you don't have to replace it, but obviously you want to replace that, so definitely a cabin air filter. Next, you want to do like tire rotation, so I'd say like every like 10K miles, just to make sure that, you know, your tires are like evenly wearing. That's another thing that you should do. Next I'm going to be talking about, I mean it's kind of maintenance if you want to consider it, and that is definitely injector seals. So the stock injector seals are really crappy. It really harms the performance, especially when they start going bad. So you definitely want to get injector seals. I think you can get them from Cork Sport, I think Overspeed too. I'm not sure any other brands at the top of my head, but you definitely want to do injector seals. So on top of doing your injector seals, I would also do at the same time, since your intake manifold is already off, I would also walnut blast your valves. So the valves get really freaking dirty. They get really caked up, harming your car's performance. So you definitely want to get them professionally cleaned. Walnut blasted is like the best method. I personally haven't even done this myself. I'm going to get around to it at some point. I know I should be taking my own advice, but for you guys specifically, I'm going to help you guys out. You should definitely walnut blast your valves and also do your injector seals. So last thing is like 2 mods that are technically like safety mods that I've talked about in my channel before, and that is an oil catch can and an EGR delete. So basically what an EGR delete does is it's basically just a block off plate for the EGR valve. So basically what the EGR valve does is it recirculates exhaust gases back into your motor for emissions purposes, which is horrible for your car. So it's literally just like a block off plate, or you could even unplug it. You can get it from like Damon Motorsports, JBR, Cork Sport. All of them are the same. They all do the same thing. They just block it off, and it really makes your car run a lot better. Basically what the oil catch can does, it basically catches all the blow-by oils that would like be basically recycled back into your motor, which is really bad for it, and it basically like catches all of it, and then I'd say after every oil change, you just like drain it out, and it really helps long term. These will both also like prevent, you know, like your intake valves from getting caked up. It's just a preventative maintenance thing at the end of the day. I mean, it's a mod, but it's also like a safety mod. So, I mean, it's a win-win, to be honest. Anyways, guys, that about wraps up my video. That's basically like the basic like maintenance tips and tricks that you should know for any Mazdaspeed 3 to make it run a lot better, to make it safer, to make it last longer, all that stuff. It's just preventative maintenance. It's one of those things where like if you want this car to last a long time, you have to treat it properly. You have to do the proper maintenance more than like often than you would with a regular car. Anyways, guys, I'll catch you in the next one. Stay consistent. Peace.